Oh, man, we're about to have some fun with our next guest, Tom Luginbill, national college football analyst with ESPN, friend of the show, friend of mine, talk some football, mix it up here. The big story coming out of the weekend, Shedeur Sanders falls in the draft, and it obviously dominated social media and the NFL draft. Good and bad. In that you had all these other guys who should have been celebrated. And I know they will be, but instead the focal point was Shedeur Sanders dropping. I sent Tom Luginbill a tweet by Albert Breer talking about how Shedeur Sanders fell out of the first round because of talent and performance. And then he walked you through what the NFL wants as a backup quarterback. Luginbill coached, played, started, Power 5 quarterback, been around pros, been in pro football, and so on. So, Tom Luginbill, what was your initial reaction? I mean, I think some people thought, yeah, Shedeur can fall to the second or third round. But as it all unfolded over the weekend and he was finally picked, what was your initial reaction to this, Luke's?
Well, going into the draft, my reaction would not have been surprised at all if he didn't get taken in the first or second round, because I knew there were guys in the league that, number one, didn't have him on the board. Number two, certainly didn't have him as a first or second round draft choice. So that part of it did not surprise me at all. Now, let's not forget that as this unfolded and you started to see him continue to drop, we ignore the fact that Will Howard dropped coming off of a national championship. Quinn Ewers continued to drop coming off of 2 college football playoff appearances and helping to transform the Texas program. There were plenty of other guys out there, too, that fell into the same deal. The problem is, and I think this is where the storyline comes, is Shedeur Sanders was over-evaluated as a first-round draft choice. And you go back to, Deion Sanders and his initial tweets about, well, he's going to be a top 5 pick. He's going to be a top 5 pick. The problem is, in the NFL, nobody really believed that. And so the general public sees it on social media, and you watch him perform, and he's clearly the best player on the team outside of Travis Hunter. And you say, okay, this guy's got some stuff. And he does. But it's kind of like what we do in high school recruiting. I tell our guys all the time, do not overgrade somebody, because the moment you overgrade them, you have nowhere to go but down. If at the end of the day, it may not be popular, but undergrade a little bit if you have to, so that you leave that cushion, that ceiling for development and growth and maturity. The exact opposite happened here with Shedeur. So he's put in an impossible position, and it was a bit of a house of cards because of everything going on around him and the entire package and the circus and whatever you want to call it. And at the end of the day, Bo, I mean, let's call this what this is. Billionaire owners don't like being told what to do.
No.
They don't like being meddled with. Coaches don't want to deal with distractions. And if we're going to be truly honest, as much fun as it's been to watch this over the last, 2 years, it hasn't helped because it was self-created. It was created by Shedeur and the family and Coach Prime, and now what they're experiencing is the downside to it. And you may say, oh, well, that doesn't mean he's not going to be a great player. No, it doesn't mean that. He might be a fantastic player. He might be a great player. But player evaluation is subjective, and everybody's going to have their opinion. And if there's something about the player that worries them, then they are well within their rights to say, you know what, this isn't for us. And it seems like an awful lot of teams in the league felt that way.
All right, you hit on a couple of things I want to unpack. Tom Luginbill with ESPN. He's been in the college and pro game for a while. He joins us on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. And you're listening to 105.9 The Zone, ESPN. You mentioned coaches don't want to deal with the distractions. In the college game, they will, right? A player does that.
Listen, real quick, Bo, real quick. In the pro game, they will too. if you are an elite level talent.
Fair enough.
There's nobody in the NFL that looked at him and said, okay, what area does he bring into the physical attributes
Right.
that is in the elite category?
Right.
And that's a fair question to ask, because if you asked them all, they would tell you, we're willing to put up with headaches. We're willing to put up some stuff to a certain degree. But, you better have a Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes level of talent.
Right. That's a great point. Myles Garrett, I mean, he's done everything he's supposed to do, but if he were to stub his toe, they would work with him. He's an elite player.
Yeah.
But
elite player. And no circus around him.
That's good. So we were talking about it earlier, Luke, and you mentioned coaches don't want to deal with the distractions and the fact that he was over-evaluated as a prospect. And then Kyle Brandt this morning said, if you're good enough, they take you. And he said the NFL is made up, front offices and head coaches are made up of desperate and nomadic people who are just trying to find a way, an edge, a whisker to win games. So if you're good enough, they want you. That's not what this was about. Now, I also said this, Luke. He may not be on a roster the Thursday night that the NFL opens up. I mean, think about that.
Yeah. Well, even more interesting, and I actually love what the Browns did. I thought they did an excellent job with their draft. And when they made this move, and then they took Dylan Gabriel, and then they get the bargain rate on Shedeur Sanders, they created trade capital. So that was something they've got in their back pocket right now. But moreover, what's interesting, can you imagine if Cleveland would have had a crystal ball and known what was going to happen and doesn't make the trade with Jacksonville? They would have ended up with Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders. And again, that's why this whole entire thing, like I've been now, let's see, in my professional life, close to 30 years. My first 11 years was spent entirely in professional football before I moved into this role. And the one remaining constant, the thing that has not changed, is player evaluation is subjective. And we can sit here and we can check all the boxes. We can uncover all the red flags. We can evaluate the tape, go to the pro day. Those things are all like the player evaluation from the physical attribute side. That's the easy part. And I think I told you this a week ago, 2 weeks ago, when we were talking about Nico. So I thought Nico was a top 5 overall player coming out in his class, regardless of position, on physical ability. We ranked him at 23. Okay. So why did we rank him at 23? Because there are other things that play here. There are other variables. This has never changed over the course of time, that are going to play a significant role on the sink or swim, failure or success of every prospect that comes out of high school and goes into college, and every prospect that comes from college and goes on to the NFL. And more often than not, it does not have anything to do with physical ability. It's something else.
And I mean, that's what like guys like Cam Ward, Jalen Hurts, Arch Manning. You don't have to worry about that stuff, Luke.
Nope. You don't worry about any of it. Like if you're investigating them, okay, I'll give you a prime example. And listen, to each his own. And everybody's going to have their own flash and panache and flair and this and that. Did you see Cam Ward on draft night?
Yes.
He just wore a nice sport coat, T-shirt, had the Miami lapel on his sport coat, no bling, no nothing. It was just kind of all business. None of that stuff mattered to him. Like that's not in his camp. You don't think that was investigated by everybody in the NFL? And you don't think that everybody looked at that as a positive, right? Because are we focusing on the right things or are we focusing on the wrong things? And I'm not saying that applies to everybody, but little subtle examples of things just like that. Luther Burden, who at Missouri, well, I think he might have been our top receiver coming out of high school, maybe number 2, really good player, and kind of dropped a little bit from a draft perspective. And on night 1 of the NFL draft, at 1 o'clock in the morning, he's in Missouri's athletic facility running routes. Well, That stuff matters. You start jotting those things down. And when they start piling up and you start saying, okay, this guy might have a little something to him. This guy over here might be more talented, or this guy over here might be faster, but there's something here that would tell us that the bust factor is minimized. And that's what you're all trying to do, because, well, at the end of the day, what are we doing here? We're weighing risk. We're going to see how many critical factor boxes we can check, how many red flags that we can uncover. Then when we gather all of that information, what are you willing to risk when it comes to the selection of the player? Is it something you think you can manage?
Right.
Is it something that is extremely dangerous and you're worried to death about it, but the guy is so talented that you're willing to give it a shot, all right, knowing it might backfire? And that's all this is. It's risk management.
Yeah. Tom Luginbill on the Out of Bounds show. Lugs with ESPN, college football, pro football. He joins us on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. Bundle your auto and home and save with your local Farm Bureau insurance agent. I want you to expand on when you're talking about the risk factor and these guys. All right, it's a meritocracy in the NFL, right? And you and I have talked about that.
No question.
And so I think you're hitting on something here. They're looking at this, and they just have no time for BS in this league. I mean, they're going to start cutting people this weekend at OTAs, Luke.
Oh, absolutely.
You know people. You've been there. You've been to all these things. I mean, expand on how much of a business this is, and how you can either pretty much play right out of the gate, or they're moving on in the NFL. This isn't developmental Dan Mullen, Bill Snyder, Frank Beamer, and all the other, wonderful college football programs and Brett Bielema that do a great job. This is a different deal. Talk about that.
Yeah, no time for it whatsoever. And so what they're doing is they know that all of them are gifted, right? Physically gifted. That's the painfully obvious part. Everybody within a 50-mile radius can see it. They're all super, super gifted, all right? What they are going to bank on and what they are going to invest on, and this is why you talk to the athletic trainer, you talk to the equipment manager staff, you talk to the SID, you talk to all of the support people that are around that kid, and he doesn't think he's being watched, right? He doesn't think how he treats a trainer while he's getting his ankle taped is being evaluated. He doesn't think that anybody is going to ask the equipment manager, hey, when this kid came and needed to trade out his shoes, what was his demeanor? Did he thank you? Did he say please? They don't think any of that stuff, right? So you're building a library. You're building a catalog of accountability and performance, work ethic, right? Discipline, self-discipline, off the field issues, off the field conduct, your support structure, the people you have around you. It's all being documented, right? And now you're going to sit there and say, okay, I got this guy over here who's really, really talented. I got this guy over here. He's more talented, all right? I mean, this guy is how you build it with a chemistry set in the lab. But the guy who's more talented is always late for meetings. The guy who's more talented, all right, doesn't show up to the training room when he's been dinged and missed practice. All right? The guy who is more talented isn't putting the time in on tape and is making mental errors in practice. Meanwhile, the guy over here doesn't do any of those things. And that's what separates the good from the great. And there's a lot of that going, trust me, there's a lot of that going on in the world that I live in.
Sure.
With 15, 16, 17-year-olds. Now, it's more difficult on my side of it because I'm dealing with kids in a climate where there's very little accountability and they've been propped up, and there are so many unknown variables that you're trying to identify to try to do the best job you can on not missing guys. But with the NFL, and I've said this to you countless times on this show, give you an idea of just how difficult it is to do even at the NFL level. In the NFL, in the first round, you got 32 teams with a pick, and they're missing on close to 50% of them. And that's with unlimited resources.
Unlimited resources.
To uncover every red flag, to identify every critical factor, and there's something off. There's always something, and sometimes you know it, and that's the risk part of it, right? and you take a chance anyway. And then there's going to be other times, and this happens a lot in college, from the high school to the college ranks, where it's something you couldn't identify. You didn't know about it. And all of a sudden you got the kid and it starts to manifest itself.
Right.
And now you're stuck with it.
Right. But see, I don't know how good they're going to be, but with Cam Ward and Jackson Dart, I don't have to worry about that, Luke's. You know, I mean,
no, you don't have to. You're not going to have to worry about any of that stuff. And listen, are they going to make it? Who knows? We'll all see, right? You know, we talk about almost 50% of the time, but you know, if you've done your homework, that you're not going to have the sideshow stuff that can contribute to failure. And so when you eliminate that part of it, you've given yourself a much bigger chance percentage.
There, you just nailed it. Tom Luginbill with ESPN on the Out of Bounds show, driven by Rick's Pro Truck, spraying bedliners and lift kits, RPT. Okay, when you and I were going back and forth yesterday, and what Albert, you basically were hitting on it, but Albert Breer, you know, went in depth on the tweet, and he talked about, hey man, when you're the back, and you being in pro ball, and talking to all the scouts and stuff that you talked to. I thought he framed it up well, Tom Luginbill, that he said, man, when you're the backup quarterback, they don't want to hear from you. They just want your you-know-what to be ready if the dude goes down. They need you to be mentally locked in. They need you to be physically locked in. They need you to know the playbook like the back of your hand and pick up whatever you can pick up through all the training and practice and so on. And you're not going to get that. I mean, he referenced Shedeur. He referenced Tim Tebow. He referenced Jay Cutler and Cam Newton. That either if you start off as a backup or you transition into a backup, they can't have any drama. For example, Gardner Minshew, he's going to do what he's supposed to do with the Kansas City Chiefs this year, Tom Luginbill. He is. Right. I mean, whatever Andy Reid asks him to do, he's going to do it. So that if Mahomes, you know, if he rolls an ankle and he's out for 2 weeks, he's going to give them an opportunity to win. Isn't that what they're looking for, bottom line, Tom?
Yeah, and in the meantime, he's not going to be a locker room lawyer. He's not going to be a distraction, right? And that's the other component to this. And I think that, you know, you get worried about, you know, all the talk about, you know, Coach Prime and Shedeur and what took place over the last, you know, 4 days. I don't know if you saw, I think there was a statement that Deion Sanders put out. It might have been yesterday, last night, maybe this morning, about him, I guess, potentially would like to sit in on the first meeting with Cleveland that Shedeur has with their coaching staff. There's something, you can look it up. There's something out there. But if there's truth and validity to that in and of itself right there is why the last 4 days happened.
Oh, my God. Do you look, he's one of the top 5 DBs of all time. We all know how talented he is.
I might say top 2.
There, and I wouldn't argue that. Do you think he finally understands? And he has been way more successful than I thought he would be as a head coach at Jackson State in Colorado. Tip of the cap. But my God, Luke, do you think he understands today what he did leading up to this past weekend? That's prime.
Well, I just think he is who he is, and you got to respect and appreciate that. He apologizes for nothing and to no one. That's fine. I get that. That's that supreme confidence. But with that is probably going to come a lack of accountability. Like, they're never going to look at this and say, well, we're to blame for this. Well, kind of are. You know, this whole entire persona and everything that's gone on around it, it wasn't created by Colorado. It wasn't created by Jackson State. It was created by the Sanders family, and that's fine. But as with anything in life, there's an upside and a downside. And up until this point, they hadn't experienced any of the downside, and now they have. And that's life, right? I mean, that's how it goes.
Unreal. I don't think he's going to be on an NFL roster Thursday night after.
Oh, yeah, he will be.
You think so?
I think he will be.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
The thing is, he's not. Here's the deal. He's a good player with great mental toughness, a terrific deep ball, innate accuracy.
Okay.
All right. He's got 3 bad habits, and I think a lot of them, unfortunately, he brought onto himself because he felt like he had to carry the program, which for the most part he did.
He did.
So he would hold on to the football. wait for the last chance to get the ball out because he's figuring if we go 3 and out and we put that defense on the field, we're in trouble. So he kind of played himself into bad habits. And if you do 3 things in the NFL, you hold on to the ball, you take unnecessary hits, and you get sacked a lot, you will not be in the league. And I think some of that, I don't think that's his nature instinctively, but I think it led into some of that because he was pressing so hard to carry the football team. To me, that reflects tremendous competitive temperament. But what we won't know is we won't know until he plays in the NFL whether that was bad habits that are a part of his nature or something that he doesn't have to worry about anymore. Now the clock's going to go off and he's just going to get the ball out. We don't know that yet.
Okay, so you feel like he'll either be on the Browns roster or another roster for this year?
Yeah, and listen, we don't know what's going to happen with Dylan Gabriel. I've talked to a lot of guys, too, that feel like if Dylan Gabriel was 3 inches taller and had a slightly stronger arm, because everybody in the NFL was enamored with his production because that's all he did was produce. And remember, look what's happening with these 5- and 6-year guys. It's not a coincidence that Bo Nix and Jaden Daniels performed well last year. All right? You get another guy like Dylan Gabriel, if you were to make a roster, who's to say Dylan Gabriel won't be Chase Daniel and play 13, 14 years?
That wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, get you out of trouble, be a number 2, get you out of a quarter, get you out of 2 games, play well enough to always have a contract on the table.
Right.
That could easily happen.
Gardner,
so the question is,
Fitzmagic, Jameis. Yeah.
Exactly. Because the position is so hard to play that if anybody shows any inkling of being able to get you out of trouble, you're going to be a reserve for a long time. So who's to say that's not Dylan Gabriel? Now, what I'm going to be interested to see, because that is the funkiest quarterback room outside of the New York Giants in the NFL. Right? So
it really is.
Like, what I want Shedeur to do is come in and just play.
Right.
Don't worry about any of the other stuff. Don't talk about it. Don't acknowledge it. Don't, like you said, don't open your mouth aside from acknowledging the coach with yes, sir, no, sir. How do I get to this? How do I get to that? And play, because what's going to happen is you're going to have limited reps. And so of those limited reps, you got to make the most of them. I've never seen that clip from Tom Brady when he talks about, I got 2 reps and I went in the coach and I
at Michigan
complained.
Yeah.
And then he goes, make the best of those 2. And then I did that for a couple weeks. Next thing you know, I was getting 4. I got to make the best out of those 4. And that's the mode of operation for Shedeur.
Love it. Hey, thanks, Tom Luginbill. We appreciate you.
You bet. Take care.
Lugs joined us on the Out of Bounds show, brought to you by Independent Roofing Systems, the #1 commercial industrial roofing company in Mississippi. Their work and projects completed speak for itself. Roofing.ms, done right the first time, powered by Independent Roofing Systems. Lunch today brought to you by Aplos in the Renaissance, amazing gyros, and the Lebanese rolls and the pita maz, all at Aplos.